So I am going live here, and hello everybody, and thank you for being here, and good to be with you this Monday at Monday on Astral Oracles live streaming, and we're going to communicate with the Archangel Raphael. And thank you to Kevin for moderating, and also for donating. Also, thank you to Tony Veritas for donating, and to Heather and Mandy and Crystal, new patrons who have signed up. So join us on Patreon if you would and feel like it. A lot of other interesting stuff going on over there. And well, without further ado, let's get the Archangel Raphael to talk to us about love. So enjoy it, guys, and thanks for being here. Blessings and greetings from on high. A ray of pure love I transmit from the innermost core of being, and to you, to each and every one of you, in that heartfelt moment, that heartfelt space which you find yourself in right now. Your heart is beating, and it is composed of separate layers of experience that intertwined generates the living pulse of you. So notice this message that there are layers even within the basic pulse of your physical being, the in-breath and out-breath, the beating heart. Those are, and the pauses in between, those are spaces of separate energies, and yet intertwined, they compose this precious moment, this moment filled with the love of creation, created by pure love. And so when I have entitled this transmission, Layers to Love, I have entitled it in this way to illustrate to you how you also exist of these complex and composite layers of pure, loving, radiant energy. Your innermost core, pure being, is love reflected in upon itself, marveling at its own vibration, completely absorbed and transcendent in its being. But there are different emanations to this feeling. And so when you love somebody or you feel loved by somebody, this is an emanation of this beautiful vibration that makes up everything. The more you can align with this feeling, the more you can allow for this feeling to penetrate the experience, the moment, the objects you are attached to with this feeling. The more you turn in on the feeling itself, the more you are mirroring the divine within you, the more you are layering, shielding yourself in an armor of love. And this type of armor, it does not shut out or protect in a way of shielding you. Rather, it invites in, that is, by ingraining everything into its being, by expanding into it, there is nothing to shield it, to shield yourself from, and thereby you become whole. So the process of defense is a process of acceptance. These are ways you can think about these structured layers around you. Your body is made of love. Your pulse is made of love. Your breath and your energy. These are precious, loving signatures that the universe has brought forward to marvel at. Much love to you. Quite literally, I transmit and I evoke this feeling in this moment. I bring my deepest gratitude and my blessings and benedictions from the heavens to this moment. Peace to you, dear human beings.
Hello, Raphael. Thanks for coming.
Hello, Kevin. Thank you for being here with me.
My pleasure. So the first question that was pre-submitted comes from Sophia. Could you please comment on the spiritual significance of having a flexible sacrum? And she goes on to say that she was advised by Guan Yin to tap her lower spine to awaken energy there earlier. I wonder if a handheld massager might have a similar effect with some intention.
Yes. Well, let us move from the more practical of these questions into the more general. That is, let us begin with the handheld massager. Well, notice, for instance, if a person specializes in treating other people's bodies and tensions with their hands, you may say of them that they have magic hands, but you rarely say of a apparatus or mechanical thingamajig that this thing is magic. If you do, it is usually because you have some intent in hawking it off to someone else. That's to say, within the hands, there are special abilities of energy transferal. They are like 10 little magic wands that you have on attached to your body and that you can use to manipulate and awaken energy. So the massager may benefit you in all kinds of ways. It may allow for you to open up, and it may also apply some movements and pressures that might be helpful to you. But they are never a substitute for that beautiful energy emission, which your hands, they are always producing to some extent, and that energy transmission, which you can, with some intent, awaken and use by, for instance, or utilize by, well, bringing this technique of tapping to the table, that is tapping yourself to awaken energy centers. By this, you create a type of cycle. You are transmitting an energy of intent to awaken these centers, and you are doing so into energy centers. So there is a correspondence here, a dance that cannot quite be replaced with the apparatus. And so, why have you been encouraged to awaken your sacrum? Well, the sacrum is a sacred space. That is why it is named as it is named. But you may approach this field as the most unique part of human beings. Well, you go on and on about your brains, and yes, they are capable of doing certain tasks that are quite impressive, we might add. But at the same time, there are many other species that you are aware of, such as certain species of birds, elephants, cetaceans, so forth and so on, that also have complex cerebral structures that are capable of some of, let's say, the very fine etheric translations and perceptions that your mind is also capable of. But your sacrum, well, it holds all those things that are in many ways uniquely human. Notice, for instance, that your sacrum is also connected to the navel, this exposed part of yourself that in many people create a type of energy void, and that you both need to protect and to feed and uphold. So here there is, let's say, the sacrum is the back part to the navel, where the navel is oriented forwards. The sacrum is the thing that catches this process, these drives that are centered around the navel within a type of sacred ground, a type of groundedness. But other aspects are that the sacrum also holds special tensions on how you navigate your hips, and also, well, how you, for instance, control those processes of digestion or the expulsion of fecal matter and urine. these processes that are also very human. That is, we might remind you that if you have ever been around cattle or other creatures, they also have the liberty to defecate at will, and they aren't really bothered at where it takes place. And notice that this is very foreign to human beings. So there might be this process of both revulsion and envy to observing the animal body who's able to discharge us at will. And so the sacrum is this place where all these tensions of walking, of controlling yourself or holding yourself in, of composing yourself and carrying yourself upwards and onwards in the world, that they are concentrated. And therefore, it is a space that holds much tension. And this tension you can work on as a type of knotted structure. And there you can learn to create a type of lattice work of your nervous system in these areas, awakening it, activating it, and balancing it to a degree where you will not be challenged by so many problems connected to this area where much tension is present for most people. We hope that this answers your question, and we bless you in exploring the gift of tapping and the energy that it can awaken. Our love.
Thank you for that answer. It was very thorough and I'm sure helped a lot of people. So Mandy Sullivan asks, is there an answer to be found revealing the root of my illnesses?
Well, the reason I am pausing is because I am accessing the archives surrounding your personal experience and development. So we could say the reason underlying all illnesses is to some extent the creation of the universe. That is, there is a chain of imbalances that runs from that moment and into your present experience, and they are manifesting in your body as illnesses. But we could also say that there is a harmony arranged in this, that these are points of contrast that will help you explore who you really are behind these symptoms of displeasure, of something that needs to be worked with, acknowledged, shedded, and purged. These are challenging experiences, but there is not one universal cause for these. Rather, you may seek them in different spaces. So you may, for instance, want to, look at much of the grief, sorrow, and upset as something that's particularly connected to your mother's line and those ancestral lines that went before her. You may sense that, things that you are experiencing more connected to your posture is actually also some skeleton pains that may arise from a tendency towards vitamin deficiency in ancestors that are 4 generations back. And you may find that some of your troubles arise from, the culture that you live in, or, your exposure to many electronic media and these types of light sources that they also hold and emit. But if you try to sort them out, if you try to assign them, and if you realize that you are a part of an ancestral process, and many of these illnesses coming up in you, they are related to challenges or imbalances in your ancestral lines that they were unable to clear, but that are now becoming conscious and present for you to face. If you go about it this way, you may sense that things will shift and move onward for you rapidly. These things are coming up to be resolved, and it is with the blessing of your higher self, as well as of the angels and the heavens, that these things, they move forward to be seen, faced, forgiven, and released. Our blessings and love to you in this process.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to pop in here and ask a question since we're speaking on the topic of ancestral lines. So I was just recently became knowledgeable of the possibility of receiving healing from our ascended ancestors. And if you or anyone who's going to use this technique has any issues with any of their relatives, then they can simply ask them to not join in the ancestral healing. But can you go into more detail on how this would work? Because once our ancestors, pass on from these bodies, that they ascend, everybody ascends into higher dimensions, and then chooses what they want to do. So yeah, if you could just go into how we can use our ascended ancestors to receive healing.
Yes. It may differ from person to person, seeing as your ancestral lines are also somewhat unique to you. Well, unless, of course, you have brothers and sisters. But other than that, you may sense that, well, there is a certain type of personal connection that needs to be made here. And the best way to do this is to recall the ancestor that is the further situated in the past, that is the oldest relative that you remember from your own lifetime, that you have a fond memory of. Because, of course, as you also note, if there is someone who you feel there is a block connected to, these might not be the person that you would want to connect to. But there is likely also some type of sweetness that you can trace in elderly relatives that have passed on from the memories that you have of them. There is a type of fondness that is, well, beyond the often, let's say, smaller grievances that exist between, for instance, parents and children. But for some of you, it might also be your mother that you have a fond relationship to. It may be different, but the idea here is that this is, well, a representative of the ancestral line. This person is then connected to other ancestors back in your line who they may have remembered, or they at least are in closer connection to. And as you mentioned, Kevin, our dear friend, you also point to this fact that, well, all ancestors are ascended. And you may, for instance, remember the image of the pilgrims choir that, well, sets the heavens alight with the sound of hymns that they sing and bring forward in praise. And, well, this is the idea that all souls are using this experience in this world to walk home to the heavens. And once your time has passed here, there is an ascended aspect that lodges itself in those higher realms of dimensions from which I come. And there your ancestors are seated. So if you want, you can also call upon different archangelic forces. Michael would be helpful in this, to connect and create the bridge that you want to cross into these heavens. And there you may find yourself surrounded, encircled by a ring of your ancestors. These ancestors are holding hands. They are illuminated with light and love, and they are bringing forward the wisdom that they were unable to transmit to themselves. So you may, connecting to this circle, for instance, find yourself receiving their wisdom, their life lessons brought forward to you in simple sentences. Some of these ancestors will step forward to you and communicate what you need to hear and what is pertinent in your situation. This is also a very helpful technique as it relates to, for instance, the examination of the root cause of illnesses, as was brought forward in the previous question. And here you may also try to intuit what kind of song it is that this special circle of your ancestry is singing, and what harmony and vibration that they have collectively ingrained in your being, ascended as you also are beyond time in the perfected image of you which is also already lost in heaven.
Thank you, Raphael. That was great. So we've got one more pre-submitted question that I will read here from Natalia, and then we will move on to allowing Anson to go next via Zoom. So Natalia asks, my impression is that energy centers, chakras, co-instruct the functioning of the physical body. At least directed healing information seems to be transmitted through the energy centers. Is this what is going on? If so, please describe this in more detail. Many thanks and rainbow greeting.
Yes, it's a beautiful question because it also gives me the opportunity to try to explain to human beings how we envision the arrangement of the chakras. See, to us, you look far more like rainbow bridges, energy bodies, concurrent floods of energy, of different vibratory light that can be expressed in the different colors of the rainbow. And here we could say the physical body looks more as a type of blob that emanates from this energy field. So it's something that, well, is radiant in its imprint, but that is somehow also obscured by its existence in, we could say, codes of lesser light, or what you know as the material world. And there is always an attempt for the chakra system, for the harmonic configuration of you within the energy body of the higher self, for that to reattune, reawaken, readjust the physical body by transmitting its vibrations to it. And it does so also by emitting, well, what you are gradually discovering is that light is actually information and is also tinged with a lot of this akashic information of former lifetimes and experiences. And it does so by transmitting these experiences, by, well, trying to awaken this light. And that's why you may also feel, when your energy centers are being stimulated, that your physical body reacts by, well, you sense a type of pain because it constricts around the expanding energy. So you can think of these as data points within the soul's energetic journey that holds the unique configuration and memory of who you are. And then that is constantly being translated into, we wouldn't necessarily use the term the husk to imply that the body is also a magical instrument, but it's just often very blocked in its receptivity towards these higher codes. And that is very much how we view it from the angelic dimensions.
Great, thank you. Anson, go ahead.
Hello, Raphael. It's nice to be here with you today. And I've just been watching your channeling with Matt's like disease and addiction on the awakening path, like every night. That's what I use to go to sleep, and it resonates very deeply.
We are very grateful to hear that. And we can also transmit the gratitude of the source speaking through us. We transmit our love to you also in this moment, Asen.
Thank you. So I have some interesting questions that everybody could resonate with, but unfortunately, the question that I'm gonna ask now does not. So I have a final exam tomorrow that I'm really nervous about, and it's I'm just not sure how to better prepare for it. Could you advise me just on what topics to focus more on, and if you think I will do well, since it is sort of like high stakes at this point? Thank you.
Yes. May I ask you, what topic should you feel you should focus more on?
I guess I do have sort of an inkling, and I had a dream last night in which certain topics were just revealed to me. Does that sort of resonate with what I should do?
Yes. See how much question can bring forward, or this hall of mirrors that we are producing lovingly together here can actually help you. Because notice then that you're already being guided by your higher self in this. And there, follow this instinct and allow it to take you there. And then at some point, well, allow yourself also to, well, release the expectation. You will, and this is fairly mundane advice, but you will come to a point where you will be aware that there are things that you would like to be better prepared around, but that you do not have the time for. So allow yourself also to rest this evening. That is, at some point, put your pencil down and there know that this process is being guided, that these shifts in your life, well, they require, let's say, the participation of the mundane or personality part of you. And you are already participating, you're studying, you're preparing, you're tuning into advice that you receive in your dreams. So we sense that all this is, in a sense, carrying, well, positivity into the experience. And we wouldn't, of course, spoil the fun of the nerve-wracking excitement of an important exam for you, but we do sense, well, positive outcomes surrounded to this.
Okay, thank you. That's reassuring.
Is there anything else you would like us to comment on this issue? And personal questions are also welcome.
Oh, sure. I guess relating to this, I've just been feeling a lot of frustration come up just while I'm studying, and then especially at home at night, feels like everything is falling apart, which it's not, of course, but I feel like I can't relax when I'm not studying either, because there's so many emotions. And then there's a sort of just hopelessness that comes up because of this. Like, if this is gonna go on for years and years, then like, what do I have to look forward to exactly?
Yes. And this is, well, this is helpful both to you and to the general collective to have brought forward for examination, because what you are experiencing are, well, it is partially related to the stressfulness of your experience. And there we can also say that, well, this experience of stress, it's normal, connected to the circumstances, and it has actually been serving you in the fact that it has kept you focused on the stressful task at hand. And it would wear you out if it went on for years. But shifts will be coming naturally. We can assure you that this too shall pass, and you will be grateful also to the sacrifices you have made in this period of your life when you look back on it. So that's to reassure you. But then we can also say that you are also attuning to, let's say, the shifting frequencies of the collective. And here these feelings of, you are matching up with these feelings of despondency, depression, feeling overwrought, feeling slightly hopeless. And therefore, well, you have grown quite skilled at taking this as a transformative experience, and it's pouring this frustration down with all the other feelings into that sacrificial cup and then setting it on fire, which actually serves you at this moment. And you are in many ways doing this. So notice that this coming apart around you is sort of applying pressure to the immediate situation of you also graduating. And that will turn out to have served you when you look back at it from a more cool, calm, and collected place, which we do assure you awaits you in a future. You have a long life ahead of you and brighter days still to come.
Thank you. That's something to look forward to. Thank you so much.
To you too, our loved dear friend.
Hello, greetings, Raphael. It's Salish over here.
Greetings, Salish, dear friend. We are glad to be with you this day.
Likewise, yes. Okay, it's a healing request for my sister. She just underwent a second operation after 3 years regarding removal of cancer from I believe, a left cheek or right cheek. I can't, and the tongue and around the throat, I believe. and she's been released to go home today after a week. Just so generally a healing for her, please.
Yes. What you can do as we transmit this healing signal to your sister, bless her in this progress and this journey. You can think of interacting with her mentally or with her energy body, much as you would interact with a voodoo doll or a talismanic representation of a person. This is a very bright technique, and the higher self usually, almost always, allows for loving transmissions from other people to be received and integrated into the energy body to strengthen it. This is why praying for someone else helps, for instance. So if you can call forward this bright image of your sister, you may sense that there are, well, certain centers that are now trying to open up for this influx of light. And if you conjure up her image, you can surround these centers with light, and you can let that light flow into her experience. Then we also sense that her healing process would be aided if she were to take in, that is, natural, non-animal sources of protein. So this could be, for instance, from mushrooms, or it could be from algae, or it could be from nuts and grains or other things, seeds that are high in protein content, but soy products. These things may actually assist her a lot in her healing as well.
Yes, she's a vegetarian, so that's where her source of protein would come from. And it's a blessing because it's a case whereby my family and my sister are not allowed to see her because we've been treated as lepers because we are not vaccinated, which is a scenario that's playing out throughout the world at the moment. So yes, I'll be grateful to heal her energetically. And the prognosis for her, how does it look? Have they been able to at least remove all the cancerous cells?
Yes, we sense we are not directly allowed to divulge when she will pass from this body, but we sense that, well, it will not be this disease that will immediately be her undoing. We can put it in that way. We can sense that there's at least a period of 7 years where she may experience in the coming 2 years that she's healing and restituting, and afterwards we sense actually this period of greater health emerging. And that's not to say that after that there will be difficulties, but it's simply to say from that point the timeline is shut from divulging more information around the outcomes. But we do sense that this operation has served her, but that she will also need, well, quite some time to really recuperate.
Yes, I believe she was recuperating from the first operation 2 years ago, so that's great. Yes. And as for my healing, I'm sure I require healing. So if you could heal me, I'd appreciate it as well.
Yes. What I am stimulating and awakening here is the angelic field around, well, approximately below your claviceps and in the center of your rib cage, and, well, between your shoulder blades. You may seem that there is some pressure being generated in this field of your body, and that this has recently caused you some trouble and will keep, well, maybe causing you some aches, but at the same time, the healing that is being allowed for is a shedding of the heart space. There is this type of, well, it's the energy of it's the resigned mourner. It's the mourner who has in many ways accepted also the limitations of life or the fragility of it, and thereby treasure it the more. So this is in many ways what you are opening up to, allowing your heart to hold this complex feeling of the sorrowful joy of existence.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
To you too, blessings and love.
My deepest love and gratitude to you, Archangel Raphael. This is Laura.
Our love to you, dear Laura. Thank you for being with us this day.
I'm wondering if you can teach me a little bit more about when I set a healing chamber with yourself and the others, and we work with Quanta, specifically around working with physical pain for myself or for others, how I can better participate with you guys to assist to assist people with their pain.
Yes. What I will bring forward and advise you in working with this beautiful intent and expressing it, well, partially, I will remind you that your own experience of physical pain, of dealing with this, we could say, almost incarcerated feeling of unbearable pain, of trauma within the body. This is something that helps you on the deep empathetic level. It allows you to identify and isolate, and thereby also banish the energy from another person's body. But what often happens in human experience is also that your compassion to some extent gets in the way of you of your practice. Yes, and you are recognizing this, because, and that is why of course we can bring it forward, as it is not a dangerous statement to people who also have this compassion naturally. That is, if you sometimes also choose to see that people's pain can be accumulated for themselves to act upon, but they can also be present at your experience because they are inviting the healing that you can, we can say, channel or present into their lives, that they are sincerely seeking that out. And there you may feel sometimes that, well, what you need to do is apply that extra pressure to find that sore spot and then activate it by letting it become exposed, opening it, and thereby really allowing for the flood of energy to move into it and begin to release it. And notice that your higher self moves in that way, that it intensifies imbalances in your experience until they pop, so to speak, until you have to rectify them, until the pendulum has to swing. And this may be an approach that you sometimes have to take, the more forceful approach, in trusting that you have the skill to evaluate what is the correct amount of applied pressure.
So when you say that, so when I'm focusing energy, like say someone has a sore shoulder, and so I'm focusing energy there and seeing the energy build up, you're am I understanding that you're advising me to focus that until visualizing it being filled to capacity with light?
Yes, even seeing this as a type of fire or intensity. No, for
Okay.
instance, yes, the burning sensation that sometimes come with pinched nerves is a symptom of the body wanting to heal and shed this by, that's actually a sensation of the energy, because it becomes pent up and cannot flow. So you may sense that this high charge of energy is actually beneficial to people. Of course, if you are dealing with someone who's in a very, very tender and, let's say, restorative space, you will intuitively sense that this will not be the right approach. But often what you also experience in your own process is that it often takes a quite large accumulation of energy to break open the barriers that exist either in the physical, the mental, or even the spiritual realms.
Okay. And if I may ask one follow-up,
Certainly.
it seems like some of the parameters for healers are shifting with the ascension of all of us and the earth, and taking a little bit different are that we're being asked to act in a little bit different capacity, somehow less of bringing the energy through ourselves and more acting as witness of holding space for the higher selves of the person we're working with to bring through the energy. Am I getting that right?
Yes, it's a beautiful distinction or nuance that you bring forward in this, and it is an important one, because when the energies were denser, it might not have mattered too much. That is also for a lot of people who were seeking healing and were seeking out the permission slip of the healer to let in this healing. That is, it was also the process earlier on that the higher self of the person had to accept and allow and manifest the healing experience into reality. But often it was necessary for that person to have that conferral of power on the healer itself, and that was the way that they could access that permission slip. But you are all being asked, and you may have noticed also that the external circumstances have prodded all of you to move more into a sense of autonomous decision making, for instance, on, well, more basic or social levels. But this is also what is happening or being set free on the spiritual level of humanity. That is, you are being activated. Many members of your species are being activated, and therefore what you can say is that the healer, or, well, this vessel, or other people who work with transferring energies in one sense or another, they are actually working more as conductors, or something that, well, just carries on with the energy, then activates it in another person, and then allows for that person to activate the higher self in another person. And so it is, well, a chain reaction, quite literally.
And so even do you continue to have the energy flow through you to them, or do you set intention to set as the conductor, as the witness, and ask quanta to flow through the person directly?
These are, well, interesting technical nuances you bring forward. And you may simply have to discern with your intuition what seems correct in that situation. But in
Okay.
general, you can, as you say, well, allow yourself to, well, more allow the energy, the quanta, to flow through this person and to activate it there. And here you may sense that, well, what you actually want to do is create a type of circuitry. So instead of you simply being a conduit for the energy and transferring it, then there is actually an activation of that energy within the other person that then creates a circuitry that feeds the healing experience. And that will also avert, well, some of the risk that some healers may face in also being a little drained by their healing work, because here you then create a type of, let's say, self-generating circuitry of cosmic energy.
My deepest love and gratitude to you and for always everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Our deepest love to you, dear Laura, and blessings on your healing path. Our gratitude to you and all of you for opening your hearts to these high, blissful energies of illumination. Dear Kevin, does anybody want to speak to us, or do you have questions for us?
Yes, I'm going to flop over to the YouTube. We've got several great questions here. So Jokin 1969-3600 asks, can you tell us something about your being and your history? Are you an ascended being, or have you always been an angel?
Oh, I have always been an angel. I was there when creation happened, and I will be there when creation completes its cycle and then begins anew. That is, we angels, we are more partitions of source. And so the Archangelic Principle is a principle of continuation, or of order, of harmony, of healing. That is, if you were to approach me, not as much as a, let's say, interlocutor between the human and the divine, but rather as a cosmic principle, I would be that force which restores and heals. In some ways, I'm the bicycle repairman of the Archangelic squad. That is, I'm simply the one who moves out when systems are a little askew, but where the heavens can still manage to set this right for the harmonic flow to proceed correctly. And that, of course, expresses in my interaction with human beings as a deep love and compassion for you, and for also the fragility of your physical experience and existence. But we angels, we do not ascend as far as we have always existed in those realms. And so our communication is from, let's say, the heavens on high, and traveling into the worlds below. That is the way the movement of our light moves. Whereas you, as an ascended species, you are moving from the realms below back into the realms of light. And we are so happy that you join us there. Everything is in place and order. And we bless you and thank you for such a beautiful question.
Great, thank you. So Chuck Miller asks, I would like to know where we are with ascension of the earth, as well as my role in it.
Yes. Well, your role in it is every situation that plays out in your experience. That is the idea that, well, we are aware that humans also tend to reduce themselves to certain capacities or roles. That is, there are certain experiences that define you, that make you whole, and that you will also sometimes repeat to the extent where you can say, well, I'm a plumber because I have done this many times, but it was perhaps a specific, well, graduation, or that then allowed you to undertake and work within this identity of being a plumber. We are simply using an example here that is maybe more straightforward than, well, your role as a light worker, because you may sense that there are points in your life where you play out your role as a life worker quite directly. That is, there are things that you look into and then become knowledgeable of, or you learn to divine, or you learn to work with crystals, or lay hands on people, or you learn to meditate, or be a soothing presence, or you learn to cook healthy meals for yourself and others. It can be in many ways that you influence people positively. And this you may see as your general role, but you are always also influencing people with the light, the love, the compassion, when you are standing in line and adding a little patience to a situation where people want to get out of the store, and maybe the clerk is having a bad day, and you have the time to smile to them. And that's actually, from our perspective, well, just as important as your, let's say, more general healing work. So that's also to comfort you that you cannot really go wrong in your ascension role. But we do sense that your ascension role is perhaps connected more to the organization of certain light grid patterns. That is, you're quite drawn to explore also different geographic regions and to sort of check them off in well, your curiosity list. And by doing this, you are also anchoring certain centers into experience, validating them, bringing them online, which you are actually all doing when you go exploring geography or sacred spaces. Undertake these types of sojourns with intent that can be thought of as pilgrimages. And here the earth is, well, it's so difficult to talk about the Great Mother because, well, she's not doing too well right now, but it's not because she's also moving through a lot of energies and a lot of things that need to be shed, and she is kind of in the stage as are you human beings, where you are moving towards the end of the bender. And if you've ever been on a bender and you've lived to regret, you also notice that there is kind of a point where sobriety and clarity moves in at the end stage, and where you are aware that, well, changes will have to be made. I will have to, well, take better care of myself now. I will have to get up and start to do some restitution, and that's very much the point where you are arriving at in her physical process. But in the spiritual energy, she's right on time, and she has been moved out of, let's say, she's far more removed from the frequencies of darker timelines of deeply polluted planets, or let's say post-nuclear hellscape. So those things are not bound to be on the timeline that we are speaking into now. So bless you for this question, and thank you for spreading the light.
Thank you. That was a great answer. So next, Yana D asks, last night I saw a boy in my dream happily looking at me and singing. I can sing for who I want, and now I sing for you, in quotes. Could you please tell me more about it? Thank you very much.
Yes, it's a very happy presence, isn't it? It's, well, notice it's connected. Well, the energy of the association that immediately popped up is this Peter Pan-like energy. It's also an archetype that's sometimes described as the poor Aeternus, or the eternal boy. And so you may actually also, and we are sorry to make references to phenomenon that are quite racist and disputed, but there is also, we believe, the transition of Svartepet in the area where you reside, which is this black-faced boy that accompanies Santa Claus with gifts. And so it's kind of the image of the spirited young boy, but also the boy who's a little dangerous, who's visiting you. And notice singing is related to the chaotic or the natural forces. We may even say the erotic forces. And here, well, what he's encouraging you to do, how you should approach this, is that you should sort of find that spirit within yourself, that playful, we could say, boy-like attitude of also experimentation, of blowing things up and not really worrying about the consequences. And at the same time, also realize that there are other parts of you that needs to be honored. So maybe it's also a message that, well, the small boys in men's bodies who still just want to play might be something that you also might want to look out for in the outside world, and rather cultivate in your own experience by some joy and playfulness. So this is sort of the response that we are bringing forward. And if we were to describe that boyish spirit, well, we are also pointing a little to that devil may care attitude, or that willingness to get beat up or hurt yourself, and at the same time having fun doing it, because that's also a part of life, getting knocked around a little. So blessings to you, dear Jana, in the exploration of this figure, both within and without, and Merry Christmas to everyone in this season where the young boy incarnates and visits humanity.
Great, thank you for that. So the next question, and I apologize if I pronounce the name wrong, I'll spell it as well, but Xinzulan, so XINXUELAN. They ask, is there any message that would be useful for me at this point or moving forward? And is there someone or someones that it would be interesting to work with?
Yes. Well, the last question, we will say this is a mirror type of question. So that person is already present and within you, and it's a person where you might feel the most challenged. That is, we actually sense that there may be a tinge of romantic energy to this, where you may want to also push your own boundaries a little by exploring this relationship. And you can think of this as working with it. And that is indeed also the message that we will say would be helpful for you. That is, we sense the presence of sweets in your life. It's almost this image of you being in a candy store, or also a store of decoration of glitter. So it's in many ways the symbol of the Christmas tree, and by that we don't necessarily mean the tree, but more this celebration of abundance within your life, like having some sweets, having some good food, having some things that glitter and that you put into your living room just because they look pretty and they add to the mood. So this is what you should allow yourself to cultivate, and this goes both in the personal arena of just having a little fun with it, but also in that, we could say, interpersonal arena of exploring your romantic interests. So we can say that it's very much an energy of being tickled. And being tickled, it expresses, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's really also a lot of fun. And that really speaks to, let's say, the fundamental attitude of the higher self as it expresses itself in the human body. That it's a little unpleasant, but it's also a lot of fun. So have fun with playing around with that, and good luck in your explorations of these themes. Our love.
Thank you, Raphael. Dante 444 asks, any messages from my guides or angelic spheres that may help me and the group today? Thank you, Raphael.
Yes. It's the Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. It's very weird. It's this song that's playing, but and it's of course from The Wizard of Oz, but it is kind of the theme of you moving out of opposition. So you may also feel that this year has held a lot of purging for you, lot of confrontations and work with different stuff, and also, well, that is patterns in, well, both your past and blocks within, and things you may have felt impeded by, and that's kind of, well, the wicked witch that's coming forward. So it's also this mood of celebration, which is a very good spirit to enter the year 2022 in. And we are aware that some other companions of this vessel will also be sharing some updates on what energies you can expect for this year. But the more you can allow yourself to sort of celebrate through the darkness for these 3 weeks and really take stock of the things that you have also banished from your life in this year, and thereby what you have made room for and invited in, that's very good advice, because we sense that, well, yes, celebrate where you are at this moment. And then we also sense that there is some unicorn energy, perhaps even Pegasus energy. It's like a Pegasus unicorn. They're often quite close to each other, these two energies, but that's kind of whinnying its way into your experience. And so if you can sort of climb the Pegasus and allow yourself to be whisked off to new exciting vistas among the clouds, this might also be an experience you want to allow yourself to have. So blessings and love to you, and on your yes, on your rides on those winged heavenly creatures.
Excellent. Thank you. So Susan Madison asks, Dear Raphael, how can I best heal my students while I interact with them?
Well, this is a very good question. You may sense, if you are in a one-on-one, then what you do is that you, well, in general, you allow yourself to become as non-responsive or non-reactive. That is, that it's very helpful for them to feel that you are a stable presence that is not too influenced by their shifting moods and attitudes, because they are both in a space in their lives, in their physical development, in the situation that they find themselves in, where they feel a little exposed. So in that sense, there is simply you allowing to actually retreat more into yourself may have the opposite effect of really assuring that the other person feels they can come forward. Then in the one-on-one, you may feel that, well, simply acknowledging people, listening to them without necessarily commenting too much on it, but perhaps offering a supportive word, is actually also something where you are healing them a lot. But there we may also remind you that, well, the classroom situation is not necessarily something that, there are so many shifting energies within that space, and that is regulating it, that you may feel that the portal that needs to open, or the safe space that needs to be created for people to heal, is something that you cannot quite control. And therefore, the more you remain stable, you may actually find that some students come there and access this healing impulse by themselves. But most of them will likely leave the classroom caught up in whatever drama it is that they are caught up in that day, because that's also very much the condition of that, we can say, slightly volatile situation that you find yourself in teaching. So we hope that this may serve you, and also we know that it does serve the students that you come in contact with. And so if you look for the signs of healing, you may also just take stock of the positive influence that you have had on some of these young human beings already. Our love.
Great, thank you. So Angel Wings asks, question at Raphael, I'm an Aeon angel, and I recently discovered more of my true self and missions directly from source. If I got all these healing abilities, why do I need help from others? Am I missing something?
Well, Well, you're starting with the result, and that is, if you remember in fractions, that is, it's easier if you have the data and then you produce the result, but it's a more advanced operation to have the result and then have to produce the data to make it figure out. Um, so the different ciphers, and that is where we could say you are jumping in a sense to conclusions. That is, you may feel that these flashes, epiphanies, revelations of your mission, they are very clear to you, and that is very helpful, because that is the place that that is the result, that's where you would like to reside and be, and where you would spread the love from. But what you are being called forward to in this lifetime is really to figure out, well, how do you get there? And you get there by addition and subtracting. That is, you get there by interacting with other numbers in the system. And so if you have all these healing capabilities, then of course you need to work with others, because others are in need of healing. And if there are imbalances within you, or then you are probably still also reliant on others. And so it's also the idea that everybody is walking each other home, or everybody is sort of propping each other up. So you could also decipher this situation and say, well, there's one person who's connected to the astral and they're channeling, and then there are other people who are not connected to the astral and they are interacting with the channeling. But what's happening is a sort of deep configuration of manifold creation, where a lot of people are bringing different gifts, different ways of focusing energy with intention into the creation of this situation. And so the channeling which one person undertakes is deeply informed by that energy. It's co-created by that energy. So none of this could it really take place, mean anything, help anybody, not the channeler and not the people listening to it, if it wasn't something that was an energy exchange where everybody was contributing to this frequency, and for allowing for this frequency to touch and alter and move their experience. So it's simply to say that, well, what you really need to move into, and we are saying this with the deepest love and compassion, but it is humility, because, well, life will serve this up to you one way or the other. But if you acknowledge that, well, no matter your gifts, you are still reliant on others for those gifts to even be seen and to work or to do anything in the world. That is, if there was if there was no need for new buildings, there would be no need for architects. So there's constantly this idea between the lack and the improvement, and that is it's the cycle of that you must step into and work with. And so have fun with figuring out and juggling the ciphers and the additions and subtractions in this. Blessings and love to you.
Excellent. Thanks for that. So Alex is Water 23 asks, hi, Raphael. Can you please give me advice on how to heal my hands? It is not something I can explain or talk to humans about.
Well, yes. Well, partially, you may sense that this healing your hands. Notice the hands are in the most immediate extension of your heart, and it's the personal extension of your heart. It's really where your will or your inner reality, focused reality, faces and interacts with outer reality. And therefore, you may sense that there will be something very healing for you in opening up to communicating with other people, with both these and other issues, because there is a type of release within this. But then healing your hands, well, you may want to work partially on arranging them in weird and different patterns. So for instance, what we are performing now in this mudra, it's the type of reverse interlocking of the fingers. And so you can keep working these into positions where you feel your mind is not used to experiencing your hands in that configuration. That will be a help. And then we sense that you bathing them in water with a high degree of, it's just water with a lot of salt, with a high degree of salinity, will be helpful to you. So lukewarm water, and then resting your hands in approximately 40 minutes here, and then allowing them to at ease then dry and wrinkle up. And you may also want to use some sort of, we sense, invigorating balm. So that might be a type of menthol rub or eucalyptus or similar things to of that nature. So those are some of the ways we can do it. And then just envision these two orbs of light that you hold in your hands, that they are actually connected to the fibers, the tendons, and the very delicate nervous emanations of the nervous system in the hand. Blessings and healing to you in this, our love.
Great, thank you for that. So Jennifer Tyler posts, a message in this massive personal changes would be a blessing.
Yes. So we are sensing a ring of 4 candles within your experience. So you may sense that, well, the candle that you are bringing forward, you are sort of seated within these 4 candles, and then in the middle there you stand holding a 5th candle, and you may sense in the center of the hurricane that, well, the other flames are being whirled about, and your experience is rearranging itself. But as long as you keep that candle lit in front of your heart within the center of the hurricane, things will rearrange themselves. So you will you will be going back to Kansas at some point. So the things are settling, and you are being carried away by those storms. But keep your light tight, and your small animal companions and spirit friends know that they are also they're immovable with you in the center of the storm. This is the message that we transmit to you. We sense there's almost a sort of childish joy within this, that there's a space. Yes, this space, this layer that you built for yourself, this cave where you're protected. And here, know that you can examine it, walk around while things are crazy on the outside, and then study, well, the drawings that you have left here, and time immemorial, this sacred protected space within the storm, your secret sacred cave. Our love.
Fantastic, thank you. So the next question comes from Q, and then a bunch of letters, and then a bunch of numbers. So, dear Raphael, I am curious and would love to know the relationship of archangels to Shiva. Thanks, Shyam.
Yes, thank you for this beautiful question. Well, Shiva is in many ways what you could think of as an archangelic energy. That is a deitic imprint from the highest dimensions that expresses the pure configuration of consciousness that permeates all spaces, expanses of this multiverse. And so in that way, where you could think of Metatron as the arranging principle, you could think of Shiva as the discerning principle. So there is also an element of judgment within this movement of the infinite mind, which he expresses. But he is also an emanation or a subdivision of the one united divine that goes by many and all and no names. And therefore, that is not a bad way to approach him, also alive with this radiant angelic light. Blessings for this question.
Thank you for that answer. So Hoyt Joan 03 asks, hi, Archangel Raphael. Can you tell us about fractals? What does it mean that humans have fractals of an angel?
Well, it means that the easiest way to think of this is, of course, are they called babushkas or matryoshka dolls? These Russian dolls of the doll within the doll. And so that is your pure or angelic, your highest being, even your personal guardian angel. And that is the highest imprint of you or expression of you. That's your fully ascended being. And so within that, you are not separated that by being something different. You're just a part of that doesn't realize you are all those things. So what you could think of is that you are the innermost doll, and you don't remember also having been a being inside those larger dolls that you are placed within. But the larger doll, from its point of consciousness, it's fully aware that it's holding smaller and smaller versions within itself. So this is the angelic part of you, is, well, you plus all the higher, more radiant, more positive parts, all your spirit connections, all your higher soul, higher self, all that is embedded within your angelic being, which is, we could say, the full construct with you situated within all 13 dimensions of experience. And there you are, in that sense, a lower fractal, in that you are that part of the angelic which experiences itself only in fourth dimension and gradually more fifth dimensional experience. So it's much as if, well, you had that you had taken the elevator to the fourth floor, and there's really 13 floors, and that's your angelic self. But you're thinking that the fourth floor is the top floor, and that's your, let's say, your physical mind body complex, your mundane self. And so the task is for these parts, for you to climb higher and higher, ascend to higher and higher stages of the floor, incarnating, well, both those parts you are now, but also the higher parts, and mending them. So we hope that explains it somewhat, and you're very beautiful to look at from our perspective, we might say.
Great, thank you. So Simon asks, dear Archangel Raphael, could you please explain my astral connection to my old friend Shahid? Love and blessings, Simon.
Yes. Well, the connection here it's interesting, because we are getting one of unrequited love, not in this lifetime, but rather in other lifetimes. We sort of sense you wooing him, and him turning you away. But we also sense there is a lifetime here where, well, for some instance, we were in the first lifetime, we were approximately getting like visions of Naples in the late 1600s, this area, maybe further south, Calabria, but this area of the world. And then there is another one where we are sensing that, well, he's in need of you, and he's sick, he's dying, and you're abandoning him. And this is a lifetime that it's situated here we are getting the 1400s, and we are in, it's southern Pakistan, approximately. This area, southern central Pakistan, and here you were married, but you abandoned him. You were, this was also, well, you were being quite practical. So you realized that, well, your friend Shahid, who was your wife in this lifetime, was dying, and so you started looking for greener pastures, so to speak. And so there is this type of element of punishing. So there was this lifetime then later on where she denied you her love, and now you're trying to work that out. But you may sense that this longing bond is something that defines your relationship in the astral.
Great. Thanks for that. So I'm going to pop back over here to the Zoom room. Mandy just joined, and she has posted, is there any message for me regarding my spiritual guides? I'm having trouble connecting to both my higher self or others. I'm afraid the medicines I am taking to manage my physical symptoms are blocking this ability.
Yes. Well, you are correct in discerning this, that, well, I'm pausing to phrase the question. That is, you are correct in discerning that you may feel the medicine is blocking, well, both your ability to let's say connect heart to others, and this is, well, it's a side effect of the fact that you have problem discerning where you are yourself in this situation. And so the advice here is actually to not feel that you are missing out on anything, that where you are now is, it might be necessary for you to take this downtime of disconnection and then connecting to your higher self. It is something that comes up quite a lot surrounding this practice. And because we know it's essentially what you are doing and what you are striving for is to integrate and connect to more and more of your true will and your true being and this blissful part of existence. But at the same time, your higher self is always there with you. It has always orchestrated the situation. It's always connected to the degree that it can be connected. And so how the guides serve you, and in many ways also how we archangels serve you, is that they sort of bring forward isolated parts or unique parts of the higher self for you to communicate with. So where you may go looking at this moment, rather than feeling, oh, I feel really disconnected, or I should be doing this, and the medicine is wrong, because you are already aware of these imbalances, and they will begin to work themselves out. But be kind to yourself in where you see connection. That is, look for the small connections at the moment. Look for connections with animals. Look for the pleasure you might have in a meal, or simply enjoying an olive in a moment where you may feel like you haven't had an olive in a long time. Those simple pleasures, and feel that, well, things may be very upset now. So the small successes, the small places where you are connecting, where you feel, well, compassion or love present in others or in yourself, be content with that, and then things will change and process themselves out. And your guides are there to support you also in this moment. And we do also sense, let's say, certain influx of transformative energy that's connected, well, much to some of these galactical counterparts. So they are making themselves aware in your experience and will become more and more present in the coming years. So have fun, be patient, stay strong, and be kind to yourself. That is the loving advice that I, Raphael, and the heavens transmit to you. Blessings.
Thank you, Raphael, for that. So I'm going to hop on here and ask another question dealing with the core wound of separation that obviously everybody feels at different levels. And my perception is that this can ultimately lead to attempting to fill a void. This void is real because, yes, we are separated from source and from the umbilical cord, but it's also imaginary because we're always connected. So can you go into more details onto this theme of attempting to fill this void that is not really real and what we can do when the urges creep up?
Yes, it's a very good question, because you are isolating the feeling more correctly when you speak of it as a void, as when you speak of it as boredom, frustration, desire, urge, restlessness. A lot of these simple symptoms or impulses are all, let's say, slighter expressions of that deep void of disconnection. And there is partially, well, the acknowledgement of the disconnection. That is, you will not really move on to states of higher contentment before you also acknowledge that this dissatisfaction may be a part of being human that is to be explored. And then when you come into this space, you can begin to perceive the void more as a backdrop. That is, all these experiences, this restlessness, when restlessness arises, for instance, you may sense that, well, it's a backdrop to other deeper emotions. And when, well, the emotion we are looking for is when the sense of boredom, for instance, arises, it is also a backdrop to this deeper emotion of separation. So when you begin to, let's say, identify or transfer these lesser manifestations of the void, of the feeling of separation within you, you begin to isolate this feeling of separation. And once you have isolated this feeling of separation, you can, to some degree, also treat it as external from yourself. That is then the part of you that is always connected, the part that is not in the illusion of separation, becomes the more vivid simply by you treating this void as something that's external to you, as something that you can almost hold in your hands, and that you can then observe and see as, well, negative energy. That is negative energy that comes with, that's built up from existence, but that has no direction. And then you can actually allow, well, either for the void, you can invite it to fill it with some of your favorite things, simply mentally visualizing this. You can fill it with light, beauty, love, compassion, care, visions. But you can also allow for the void to dissipate, sense the restless energy within it, and then shape this restless energy into the area where you feel there is actually a lack, because sometimes it is also pointing to a lack in your immediate circumstance, something where you feel unfulfilled. And if you actually use it in one of these ways, it becomes more of a tangible instrument rather than this deep, crushing existential burden that's really hard to manage and deal with and carry.
Great. Thank you for that. That was very thorough. And I have one final question about working with the ionization of our blood and the electrical charge of our blood to heal ourselves and basically charge ourselves with more energy. Can you go into more detail into that?
Yes. Well, partially, you may want to look at increasing your potassium, magnesium, and calcium levels in order to facilitate this process. That is, you can look into eating vegetables that may be rich in these or other food sources. There, you may also sense that what is happening is an type of increased charge of the electric currents within you. So speaking of this ionization, there is actually an increased frequency of charged ions within your bloodstream. So more molecules with imbalanced charges means that your synapses are actually transmitting quicker. And this also happens, for instance, in, well, the non-localized parts of the brain that is situated in your stomach and other parts where these brain cells take place. And this, well, what you are then also coming to realize is that this ionization or this electrical charge is the type of field generator where consciousness is played out. So it's not really the generation of consciousness itself, it's the generation of the field in which consciousness is experienced. And so as this field is charged, consciousness is charged, it becomes more electrical. And so aberrant thoughts have been, for instance, been a symptom that many of you have been experiencing in these changing energies as a symptom of this. And well, here again, for instance, accessing bodies of water with high degrees of salt, that would be very helpful in order to balance this out. But be kind to yourself and eat healthy, balanced foods is the general advice we can offer to you.
Thanks. That was really great. So we're going to wrap up with 2 more questions. Laura's going to hop back on the Zoom, and then I'm going to finish with 1 more question off of YouTube. Does that sound good to you, Raphael?
Yes, that sounds very good to us. Thank you, Kevin.
Hello again.
Hello, dear Laura.
I have been wondering more about the yellow-eyed being that had been utilizing my energy. Wondering if they connected to me while I was in utero. How did that happen? Did I make some agreement with them? Just knowing that we're still so much of our expanded selves when we're still in utero. So I'm wondering if there was some agreement made. And then I'm also wondering what has become of them since I gave them over to you or to the angels.
Well, yes. It is one of the points where, well, we may come off sometimes as a huge heavenly bureaucracy because they have been reschooled, retooled, and repurposed, and they are now living out their new purpose happily, tending also to the frequencies of someone else's energy field. So there's also a certain karma in their purpose here. But what you may have experienced here is, yes, it was this in utero connection, but this is sometimes, it can be a little fear-inducing in human beings, but there are so many layers to your spiritual being. And often, well, these layers aren't really completely intact until you move up into the highest angelic radiances of frequencies of you. And so what often happens in utero is also that, well, certain, we could say, permutations of your energy field, disturbances, leaks are allowed to take place, often according to deep karmic agreements and patterns. And this means that certain beings that, well, from a human perspective, may seem a little parasitical, as someone who leeches off your energy, can often be allowed to create some of these in utero disturbances in the energy body for you to then heal and explore. But this, of course, happens at this point with the allowance, well, not necessarily of the fetus part of you, but with the allowance of the part of you that's sort of remembering and planning out, well, remembering its past lives and planning out this one.
Okay, so it was I figured that, so I did make some sort of agreement that at some level that was going to occur.
Yes.
Very good. Much love and gratitude. Thank you.
Our love to you, dear Laura.
Okay, so our final question comes from Car 1212. Archangel means original one. Does that mean you are of the Anunnaki? Are you connected to Lyricus, first central race? Any messages for us if you cannot answer that? Thank you. Love you.
Yes. Well, the short answer is no, because original, as I explained in an earlier answer, it also refers to the fact that I am present in creation. I am an element of creation, and I was present when creation happened. And so the Anunnaki, they are very, very, very young seen from the angelic perspective of time. You may perceive these as ancient, them being perhaps a few 100,000 years, maybe even 500,000 revolutions of your globe around your star. But to the angels, this is literally someone who was born yesterday. And we have much love for all beings, but we do belong to higher orders than these different emanations into the physical experience of Source, to which both Lyricus and Anunnaki belong. So we were there in the beginning, and we will be there to receive you with open, loving arms in the end as well.
Great. Thank you. Well, that rounds us off really nicely. So if you wanted to do a small closing gesture, we're all here, and thanks again.
Yes. Thank you. Our love to you as well, Kevin, and to everyone who is here. I will transmit this healing light ingrained within tones of sound and vibration. Encased in a double helix of proliferating light, light that encases and expands you, that seeks out the wonders of your being, that sets secrets alight within you, illuminates them for you to behold and to hold up and to share with the world. So many gifts are being uncovered within you. So much love is being freed from your core and into expression, into experience, into creation. I, the Archangel Raphael, I transmit the deepest, undying, unwavering, unchanging love from the heavens to you personally, to all of you collectively. Thank you for what we have shared here today. My love and blessings. Peace. So that was the Archangel Raphael. Beautiful, guys. I feel very good when having held energy for so long, and thank you for all the beautiful questions. And so practical announcements. This Thursday, there will be a private live stream for the Patreon community, and I will make it public over there in a minute, and there you can join us same time of day and also submit questions. And then I plan to do a YouTube live stream on the 21st, the solstice, and I think I will try to do one of these. I can see that they allow me to make messages for the community now. So perhaps you can vote on what kind of entity you want to talk to with the equinox. But with that being said, thank you to everyone for your beautiful energy, and I'm looking forward to coming live streams, and have a lovely evening / day wherever you are.
Great, thank you, Mads and Kevin.